Hello and welcome to the Community Climate Action Programme Strand 1. This is the application for building low carbon communities, and when you click the link on the County Council page, this is the first screen you will come to. And when you hit a new application over here, it will bring you to a screen that will require you to register your email. So assuming you have that done, which is straightforward, it'll bring you straight into the form. So question 1 of 32. So here is the basics. Name of your group or organization, then the name of the contact person, the address of the contact person. So this is the postal address that may be used for any postal correspondence. The email address for correspondence, and this would be the email address that you use for your day-to-day correspondence. Then the phone number for the person filling out the application. And this is the air code of the property or the closest property to where the works are proposed. So if it's for a field that doesn't have an air code, if you can get an air code of the closest property, all this is just a way for us to see exactly where the project is located in the county. This question then is where you outline the purpose of your group organization, outline what are the daily activities, what your group does. Then it's asking if your group is a member of the Public Participation Network. It's a yes or no answer. If you're not a registered member of the Wexford Participation Network, that's fine, you say no. And then it will ask you to upload a copy of your group's most recent AGM minutes. And you click the upload button there, and then it will open a window there for you to upload a copy of the minutes. It can be in Word document, PDF, a JPEG. Next, it will ask you for a copy of your group's Articles of Association or Constitution. And finally, it'll ask you to upload a copy of your group's current list of executive committee members. And you don't need to fill out these 3 questions. If you rewind here, if you say that your group is a member of the PPN, so we say yes. What it's saying here is because I've changed my answers, so you won't have that screen. So we then move on to the PPN registration number then, if you have that to hand. Again, if you don't have that to hand, you can move to the next question, but it will bring you back at a later point. So next question, does your group own the land or premises on which the project is proposed? So it says here, if the property is leased, select no, and you can upload a copy of the lease agreement on the next screen. So we'll say no, that you do not own the land. So it'll bring it in, it will ask you to upload a copy of the lease agreement. Okay, so I'm just going to go back a step here. So and say that, does your group own the land? We will say yes. Again, you can ignore that. Does your group currently have surplus funding available from within its own resources to undertake the works? So what this is a question about is eligibility criteria question. It asks if your group has sufficient surplus funding available from its own resources. So the purpose of this fund is aimed at groups who do not have the surplus funding available to carry out these works. So if you say yes, that you do have surplus funding, it will then say to you, you have selected yes, that your group has surplus cash reserves. This funding program is aimed at groups who do not have the funding resources to carry out proposed works from within its own cash reserves. Now, if you wish to outline how you can still meet the criteria, even though you do have funds, you can outline it in this text box here. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go back here to the question, just where it says, do you have surplus funding? For most groups, it will be no. Now again, it's just said, because I said yes initially, it's just asking me, am I comfortable with that change of response? Yeah. So next it asks you for the necessity for grant funding. So please provide relevant details outlining how your project could not go ahead without grant aid. And in here you can type in details of why this funding is necessary. So it could be a case of if it was solar panels, for example, if this funding avenue was not available to you, that the group just couldn't afford to go ahead. Or it just doesn't, you don't, again, it's back to your own resources that you need this funding for the project to go ahead. You don't need to flesh out in too much detail there, but just a brief outline as to why it could not go ahead without the grant aid. So here then you're asked to declare that you have secured all necessary planning and regulatory permissions, including any permissions or authorizations to access the land, buildings, or property. So if you do not have any planning issues, or if you do have certain planning permissions already in place or written exemptions, you can. This is where it's asking you to declare that everything's in order. So we'll say yes. And then it's asking, have you discussed your project with the Council's Community Climate Action Officer? Again, this is not compulsory to have discussed it with myself, the Community Climate Action Officer, but we recommend strongly that you do discuss the project. So we'll say, yes, you have discussed it with me. So now we're moving on to project details. Can your group or organisation reclaim VAT? We'll say, just most groups will be unable to reclaim VAT. We'll say, just in this sample case, we can. It says you have selected yes that your group can reclaim VAT. Therefore, all costings in this application must not include VAT. So how much funding are you applying for? Let's say small. And it asks you to tick the items that you are seeking funding for. So it could be solar panels, it could be water filling stations, and it could have other. Okay. Just take note of the fact that we've put other because the category that's on this sample application isn't listed above. So now because we've hit other, project details other, categorize if not listed on previous screen. So we're going to say extreme rainfall. Okay, and move on. Here's where you outline all the details of what you're planning on doing. As I see, there's a lower limit. It's looking for at least 10 words here, but an upper limit of 1,000, which is like 2 A4 pages of densely worded text. So that's the limit on it. Even at the 2 pages, I don't expect people to have to submit that volume of information, but that's the maximum. Here we're looking for the total project cost. We said it was under 20,000, so in this case we're putting in for a total of 19. Please show the main project cost below, entering only the costs from suppliers that you're proposing to engage. That is, only list the most economical price of 10 for each component. So, say solar panels, supplier name was solar, and he came in at 15,000. I want to say we had rounding to slow surface water runoff. Double tier now, and he was 4,000. Now you will have obtained other quotes, but you don't enter them here. This is just a list of components of the project that you're going to implement. And you'll see at the bottom, then it totals up there at 19. What's next? This is where you upload the copies of 3 quotations for each element of the work. So you'll upload your copy of 3 quotations from your solar and 3 quotations there from your digger contractors. The approximate duration of the works, you have up till 18 months, but just give an approximate time period. Then we move on to the 6 categories here where you can basically sell your application, outline how it meets the criteria required by the funding program. So this is relevance and impact. So outline how your project provides environmental benefits under each of the themes and how it contributes to Ireland's climate and energy targets. This is all about how your project is relevant and how it will have, what impact your project will have. Again, upper word limit of 1,000 words. So again, sell your project, outline how it has an impact, outline any calculations on energy savings, CO2 emissions, kilowatt hours, all that goes in there. It's all about the impact of the project. Next section then is about innovation and scalability. So try and answer all 3 components here. So outline how your project is in any way unique or innovative. Outline the potential for any future expansion. So if there are elements to your project that you can build on next year or the year after, if you were to get any additional funding, just outline if there's any potential for that. And outline how it sets a good example for other communities. So the potential for replication. So if it's a highly visible project, outline how there might be potential there for other community groups to see how such a project makes a positive contribution and how they might decide to do that in their own communities based on your good example. So here we outline your achievability, outline your project delivery schedule and plan, kind of a plan as to how you are going to deliver on the project. Value for money, the first category there is how does your project represent good value for money and efficient use of resources. Outline how the project costs justify the potential benefit of the work, such as energy savings. So here, for example, if it was solar panels, you outline what your usage would have been on a typical annual basis versus what the projected usage will be post-installation and how much energy savings can be made. So next section is the partnership approach. Any partnership groups should be listed here. Any responsibilities outlined if any other partner groups are helping you or if any other partner groups will benefit from the works. Outline any impacts on broader community beyond your organisation. So if there's any groups that use your premises. And the governance section then, you can outline your track record of previous grant schemes. Just a brief summary of what grants you would have accessed before and how you delivered on them, and then outline details of your project management subcommittee. So that's just the names of the people who are volunteering to deliver on this project should it be successful. So this section here, then you can upload any supporting documentation. So this is an important part where you can outline all the benefits that your project would bring. So sell the project using this. So any documentation that you might have received from your contractors who priced the work for you. So it's not compulsory, but supporting documentation such as sample ESB bills, energy audits if you have them, BER advisors, U-value calculations may strengthen your application. So use this to convey the impact and the relevance of your project. It's a state aid questionnaire. So does the funding confer an advantage over one or more undertakings? So if your group is engaged in economic activity means putting goods or services on the market. So if you got funding, would it confer you with an advantage over any competition? So if you think of the coffee shop that you may have in your community centre and there's a coffee shop nearby, if you were to get funding here, could it confer an advantage over you instead of your competitor? It may have. So for the talk's sake, we'll say yes in this particular case. Next question, does this funding distort or have the potential to start competition? So again, if the assistance strengthens the recipient relative to its competitors, then the answer is likely to be yes. So again, we'll just go with coffee shop scenario here. It may have the potential to start competition between the private coffee shop and your community coffee shop. And the last question under state is, does the wording of funding have the potential to affect trade between EU member states? So the interpretation is abroad. Is it enough that a product or service is tradable between member states even if the recipient does not itself export? So your coffee shop example here, it would not affect trade between EU member states. But if it did, let's for talk's sake say it did, it'll bring you to the last screen where you must declare the amount of previous aid received by your organisation over the last 3 years. So you can outline that there. So, but we rewind back here to that question, and we're going to say no. So if we're saying no to that last question, it won't bring us to that table because it's not an issue for you. So again, it's asking for it. Sure, yes. And that's basically it. Now I come to the end of the form. You type in your name, and next, and then it'll ask you to submit your application. So once you hit submit, it will send an email asking you to verify that submission. That's an important phase. If you don't do that, your application won't be submitted. So once you hit submit, it will send you an email. You need to go into that email and verify that submission. It's an important final step. But there's a lot of questions there that were required that we didn't answer just for the purposes of demos. It should bring us back now to those questions that we didn't answer. You can see here it just flashed up, this question is required. It will bring you back through. Now, the only issue is that if I didn't answer question 1, which I didn't, but I had answered every other question, it brings me right back to question 1, and I just need to tap through all the other questions that I had answered, or you can just skip to the very end and hit submit. Either or. So that's basically the rough outline of completing the application form. If anybody has any problems with it, they can give me a call on it and we can go through them individually. So thank you very much.